Good evening and morning, and wherever you're listening to this, it's Roger Phipps, and welcome to the Knighted Ones podcast, episode number 18. We are the only podcast that features a former UCF national champion, a former UCF radio host, and several podcasters shooting the breeze, talking UCF sports, although this week, not as many podcasters talking about UCF sports. I think everybody dipped out after the bowl game and just said, screw it, we'll get back to it next week. But you do have me, we do have Alan Levin, and we do have Trey Neal. We will be talking about the bowl game. We'll talk a little bit about recruiting this week. We'll talk a little UCF hoops. Trey's definitely going to yell at a cloud this week, so I can't wait to hear what he has to say. And then we'll cover the rest of the UCF sports, which is basically UCF women's basketball right now. So super excited to be back. I hope everyone had a great holiday. And let's get the guys back on. Obviously, Josh isn't here this week, so no Josh Lazar means who knows who'll be last when we bring them to the stage. All right. For this week, we have Alan Levin. Alan, how are you? How was your holiday?
It was good. Had a nice couple days off and enjoyed it. Now back at it. Happy to be here and happy to talk UCF. It feels like it's been a while.
It does. It feels longer than it actually has been, which is a little over a week. We were not able to do this Monday. We were originally talking about doing it Monday and somehow it became Wednesday, and now we're here.
Sure.
Also, let's go ahead and welcome Trey Neal back to the stage. Trey Neal, how are you?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Better now than I was a few days ago.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah, Trey had one text and then got real silent, real quick.
And I was actually pretty hyped too after my first text.
Oh, I know. It was all caps. It was like people say no cap. This was all cap. So
I was locked in, man. I was excited. I had me a little. I was focused. I was sitting there in the living room, and I went back to Georgia, so I was in the living room by myself watching the game. I was excited, and then it unfolded. So we'll get into it.
It unfolded. We'll call it this week because it was definitely an it. So without further ado, I mean, we've been talking about the text. Let's go ahead and get into a little bit of text talk this week, and obviously this is the bowl edition. So let's start off with Alan. Alan, what text talk did you have for us this week?
So the first one I had was from Trey was the fact that we can't kick less than a 50-yard field goal is a problem in all caps because it wasn't always like that with Boomer, and now it apparently is. So I guess it is what it is. And the other one
Hold on, don't you mean Colton Obarski?
Didn't I say that? Was that me? I think I said that.
Yes, you said that. Colton Obarski.
Yeah, Colton Obarski. That's his new nickname until he goes back to his freshman year when he was Colton Boomer. Now he's Colton Obarski.
Dude, I'm not sure Boomer is going to be back next year after that performance at the end of this year.
He's going to transfer, or
he may be asked to transfer. I mean, Gus. I mean, without getting too far into the game, I mean, think about it. Gus showed no confidence in him in going forward on that fourth down. I said, in the game that, I feel like he had a little bit of dead leg going into the last few games of the season. If you watch it. Well, dead leg is basically when, and this happens to a lot of kickers when they go from just having kickoff duties or just field goal duties to having both. They're just not conditioned, and they've never had to do that much work and put that much emphasis on their leg. Happened to Obarski, happened to kickers before him. And basically just means their kickoffs don't go as far is usually how you can tell. Boomer was kicking it out of the end zone pretty much automatically.
Yeah. The last few kicks were at the 10. Like they weren't getting anything on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, hopefully he doesn't get asked. I would be willing to give him one more chance because you have to wonder, was his 93% that he hit in this freshman year or the 61% that he hit this year the real Boomer? I mean, both are just a one season sample size. So I don't think that 91% was just like luck or whatever. I think he has that in him. I feel like, especially if you go back to the beginning of the season when he hit the game winner against Boise State, I feel like that's in there in him. Maybe like you said, he's got dead legs. So I don't know. I think he should be given another chance personally.
Well, there's dead leg and then the mental aspect, which is worse for a kicker than the dead leg. I mean, if you got dead leg, but you can still kick a 30-yard field goal accurately, then you're good, right? Because mentally you're not completely destroyed. But when you go from kissing moms and kicking bombs to just kicking bombs, kicking grenades, then it's very, very hard mentally for a kicker to come back from that. And I think you saw a combination of dead leg. He had a lot of situations where he missed field goals and it got in his head. And on that last one, there's a conversation to be had as to whether he had enough time to kick, because they sent the field goal kicking team out late for that kick, and he kind of got rushed. And I think that didn't help either. But at the end of the day, 30-yard kick, you got to make those. I mean, I
think the mental aspect can be fixed, though, right? I mean, that's not like, I mean, I guess in some cases it could be permanent, but like that is like he can overcome that. You know what I mean? It's not like his talent isn't there, right? It's like a Space Jam scenario where you just got your talent kind of stolen from you, but it can come back. You know,
some kickers can't. There's kickers throughout history. Yeah,
you just get the yips and just.
What I'm saying is I'm willing to bet he could get it back. That's what I'm saying.
Well, what's interesting to me is to see, okay, what's he doing in practice? I mean, Gus every week trotted him out there and had a lot of confidence in him clearly, and he kept disappointing. So he must be doing something right in practice for him to feel that way.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Yeah. All right. Anyways. All right. So then the other one I had was hopefully Key, meaning Brent Key, falls asleep in the fourth quarter since he's been up since 4 a.m. A little rag on Brent Key for his comments before the bowl game.
Well, I mean, clearly, those comments came from his time at UCF, but at the end of the day, clearly Brent Key was not asleep, and if he would have fallen asleep, it was because he prepped for the game. Yeah. So for me, it's one of those things where I talked to you guys about this before on the text message, where someone asked me, what were you most, worried about this game, or how did you feel about this game? And before the game, I said, it felt like our defensive coordinator and Gus were focusing all their attention on recruiting. And, when they were focusing their attention on recruiting, that was great. And he kept mentioning how, he'll finally be able to focus on the game. Well, it was like 4 days before the game or 3 days before the game. You can't do that. I think you saw that in the coaching. I don't think these guys had enough coaching in them. I think we did well on our scripted plays. And when we did those scripted plays, you saw that for the first few offensive series, right? 2 to 3 usually is the number of series you have with your scripted plays. And all of a sudden we couldn't adjust. And, we weren't pivoting to, what they were giving. All right. So, they did well on those scripted series, but then they didn't pivot. They didn't change anything. After that, the offense wasn't moving the ball very well. Obviously, we had some mistakes on the field too, but it just felt like the team wasn't prepared. They didn't have the pieces in place to play against this Georgia Tech defense. And defensively, it was even worse, in my opinion. We were in the base defense the whole time. We didn't make any changes whatsoever. There were some great individual plays, especially early on, but they got worn out, and then we didn't change the defense up at all. There was no adjustments. There was nothing. So I don't know what was going on, but we felt, to me, watching the game, it felt very unprepared. And that's kind of what I had talked about before, is that I felt that we were unprepared. So I don't know. To me, I just feel like the level of preparedness isn't what it should be.
Yeah, I mean, like you said it was 4 days where Gus was saying like he's finally can get back to the game prep. I don't know how many guys they have out recruiting. I know that when we were here, our GAs and quality control, they were very involved with at least the video part, the game planning part, maybe not the practice, but as far as getting us prepped during bowl week. Because, again, they were out recruiting. I don't know if people all remember when Coach Frost was recruiting for Nebraska. Half of the coaches were recruiting for Nebraska too, but they still we had time to prep with the GAs and again, just the things that they were getting beat on. There's no way after 15 days you didn't know that was what you were getting. That was my frustration with it. Some of the stuff they were running, they weren't running anything wow, this is something they haven't shown. No, this is what they've been showing all year. A lot of quarterback run, a lot of stretch inside zone, and they mix in some gap stuff. That was what they were doing, at least offensively. And like you said, for us, the first 2 to 3 drives, we moved the ball great. And then it just kind of stalled. And I don't even think that's really game planning. I think that's just more of that's kind of a play calling kind of thing. But we'll get into it. I'll let Alan finish his text talk stuff.
I finished mine. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, but you're right, though. I mean, at the end of the day, though, even if you come out of your base defense, they were just pounding the rock. Once they caught up, and we'll talk about that a little later. Strengths and weaknesses versus each other. Once they caught up, they didn't adjust. I mean, we didn't sell out on the run. It's not like King was a world beater. He only threw 13 times the entire game. Why do you not stack the box? That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it's. I mean, we've been saying it all year. It doesn't.
All year.
We've been saying this all year, which that kind of leads into some of my text talks. All
right, get into it, Trey. Get in your text talk. And remember, this is not the time to yell at the clouds yet.
Yeah.
We have a whole segment for that.
I gotcha. The first one is Josh says, I think we can score again. Can we stop them? Not sure right now. Listen, I knew early. Because after the first few drives, it was good. But then once they stayed with the run, I was like, oh, it's going to be one of these games. If we don't stop the run, they're just going to do this all game. And what do you know? That's what they did for the rest of the game. Hayden King, he had 13 passes. That's ridiculous. It's kind of ridiculous. I don't know if you guys watched the pros this past weekend, but the Raiders didn't complete a pass for the last 3 quarters and won the football game. That should not happen.
Not in the NFL.
I don't even think that should happen in college unless you're playing a triple option team. That stuff shouldn't happen. But yeah, we'll get into that. And then my second one, Rob says, problem is the same. Rush defense is horrible. And then Allen follows up, story of the year. That's literally like you said, podcast 18, you can say 14 out of 18 of them we're saying, hey, we got to stop the run. We got to stop the run. Bye week, what do we need to work on? We need to work on run fit, stopping the run. Get to Oklahoma State. Hey, we learned how to stop the run. Oh, wait, never mind. Next week is just the same team. We can't stop the run.
What's the deal with that? Did we break Oklahoma State? I mean, seriously, because they were running all over everybody. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they got to us and we played the game of our lives. And
I think that's what it was. I think they played the worst game they played all year.
It was after Oklahoma. It was an emotional, So.
We played probably the best game we played all year. And then combine that with your running team that's down by 28 and it starts raining. It was the perfect storm of everything that for that game. So again, it's one of those anomaly situations where that's not really our team. That was just a blip in the spectrum and just a happy moment. And that was all it was, just a happy moment for that Saturday. But yeah, that's just story of our year. We can't stop the run. And that's something we have to fix because I don't think it's I don't know. To me, it looks like guys just don't understand what is happening in front of them. Just playing the game, there's a lot of tells that you can see on what kind of plays you're getting and reads and all of that. And it doesn't seem like they're not sound in the defense or they're not sound with their responsibility, which it's a combination of both. But that's a huge problem. And again, if you don't fix that, we'll never stop the run. It doesn't matter how good, unless we get first round picks at every level of the defense that can mess up and just make plays even when they mess up. That's the only way you can solve it. But yeah, so those are my.
I mean, I could say this too. I mean, what I saw a lot of, it seemed like the defense was trying to read what the offense was doing. And because they were trying to read, they were a half step behind. And then that allowed the zone blocking scheme to develop. And then all of a sudden they were off the play. So they didn't close the gap while it was developing, so they didn't get past the offensive line. That allowed the offensive line enough time, especially the linebacking core. I mean, they literally sat back there. I counted 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and by that time, especially with a zone blocking scheme.
Yeah, like it's zone is it's you see stretch, you see inside zone, you have to hit it like now, because the longer you wait, you're letting that. What they want to do is they want you to just work up to the second level and just get in your way. The good thing about zone is that the running back should be good enough to make the cuts off of the butt. So they're just trying to get in your way, and if they get in your way and you shoot the wrong gap or you try to go backside, which is what they want you to do, and cheat it, again, you either have to be a NFL player, like a high level, like high level guys can cheat it, go backside and make the play still. Most other guys, you can't do that, or you're going to get washed away. And that's what was happening. And again, you're saying 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. You cannot wait that long in the front 7. You can do that as a safety. You can do that as a playing off corner because you're not a primary run in the run fit. You might be secondary action, which is what a lot of safeties are. But in the front 7 as a linebacker, man, you have to run and hit and fit it now, so you can make the running back decide now. And you can allow those guys to get off the D lineman and so much into it. But yeah.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, by doing that, then even if you take the wrong gap, you're directing the running back to wherever the strength of your defense is, where the other guys are coming in. And if you're just sitting back there, you're just letting it develop. And then all of a sudden, boom, they're gone, especially in the running game. And then I saw a lot of RPO. They were running a lot of RPO. And it was a question of whether King was going to keep and they started off by having King run it. And then our guys on the edges were keying on King. And then they whiffed on the running back. He just let the handoff go to the running back. So,
yeah. And that's the thing. Like when you see those kind of plays as a guy in the front, you just take whatever you have. If you have the quarterback, just take the quarterback full speed. If you try to play both, you're going to end up not playing either one of them. And that's what was happening a lot. They try to act like they're going to play the running back and then go get King. No, King is a good athlete. He's too fast. You're not going to be able to play both of them most of the time. And that's where they kind of, like I was watching when I rewatched it, a lot of the times you see two guys. You'd see the D lineman go for the running back and then try to go to King. But then you'd see the linebacker going right behind him that was going after the running back. So it's like, don't even go for the running back. Just take the quarterback because you have your linebacker. That's just it.
Nobody was spying him. We knew they were a running team. We knew he was going to run, and nobody was spying him.
Yeah, and that's
whether you spy or whether you just default and say, hey, this is your guy no matter what.
You're rushing.
Yeah, blow him up every time. And if he doesn't keep, fine. We've got another guy that's keyed in on the running back. And he's going to take the running back as the play develops.
And that's how we used to do it a lot. And everybody that I played with, Coach O'Leary, with Coach Frost, it was you try to feather it, but once you realize these guys are good athletes, or if you see it on film, you're just like, look, you have the DN, you have the quarterback, we have the pitch, we're going to figure everything out. But we'll figure it out on the run. But you cannot be uncertain. Again, you try to play both, you're going to end up playing none. And they ran a little bit of like power and like a lot of quarterback counter and stuff like that. And those are just, you have to.
They're simple plays, though.
Yeah.
They're not.
When you see pullers, you have to be in the right gap. And a lot of the time, our linebackers are shooting backside or they're waiting. And it's like, what are you looking at? There's no way you're looking. We call it the triangle. You look through, you look through the lineman to see the running back. But if you see somebody moving, pulling in front of you, you have to pull with them most of the time. So I don't know. It's they have bad eyes or they don't know what their assignment, which both of them to me are terrible things to be in the front 7.
Yeah, our linebackers didn't seem like they could scrape either. They're not very good at scraping. So.
At all.
All right. So, I changed the label of this to the Techtastrophy in Tampa, since we're getting right into it. One of the things that I saw from this game was we didn't play to our strengths. And by that, I mean, offensively, our strength is we can score big time plays. We talked about that for the preview. We were able to do that early. And then we started making some mental mistakes. Kobe Hudson drops a pass. We've got RJ Harvey in the end zone. We got RJ Harvey fumbling. And that was, Kobe, it was just a technique thing. He allowed that defensive back to make that play on the ball because he didn't bring the ball back into his body, right? So that was just a mistake. And then, you have RJ Harvey, he fumbles the ball again. And I even said it, I didn't say the full thing. I said, this feels like B, which is Baylor, right? Because that's what precipitated the downfall there. It was almost the exact same thing just earlier in the game. So we never recovered from that mentally, but our game plan has to be, hey, we jump out to our start, make them play from behind because they can't throw the ball very well. We make them one-dimensional in a way that they're not very strong in, right? So if we have that big lead, which it was almost 28-3, right? It was a hair from 28-3, and it really should have been. The way that this game plays out is completely different.
Yep.
It's just completely different. And looking at when you look at the actual stats on this game, it's crazy because, again, we outgained our opponent, right? 424 yards to 371. Now, again, that's a lot less yardage than what we typically have. We're close to the 500-600 yard mark. And that shows you something. We were still 7 for 14, 50% on third down efficiency. What does that tell you? That means drives got stopped because we were getting those third downs. If you're 50% on third downs and have 14 third downs, you win most of those games, right?
Yep.
The fourth down efficiency, we were 1 for 3. Passing yards, 255 yards. JRP, what I saw a lot of, if I wanted to critique his game, is it felt like he was sitting in the pocket too long before he released the ball. And I don't know if that was rust because they weren't practicing together or what that was, but there was no anticipation from JRP, and he was trying to run out, and that's fine. The pocket broke down way too early. He wasn't climbing the ladder. He was running a little bit early, which was good, right? But then he settled back there, and you can't wait that long for a play to develop. Now, the theory is, obviously, that eventually someone will become open if they have 5 seconds because the DB can't cover them that long.
Yep.
But your quarterback also has a clock as well, and he was waiting too long, was not anticipating his throws, and it slowed everything down. Yards per pass. When we're talking about yards per pass, it's 6.7 yards per pass for Georgia Tech, 7.7 for us. We're normally around 10. So we were getting mostly short yardage passes, right? Mm-hmm. But the big one, 284 yards rushing for Georgia Tech versus our 169. Believe it or not, our time of possession, I thought it was a lot worse than it was when I look back, 26.5 versus 33.5. It felt like a lot longer than that. Had we, been able to score and make them play from behind, that was our best defense against a running offense, right? Because they would not be able to catch up just putting the ball on the ground. But ultimately what ended up happening was we let them catch up. Then it went to 13 passes and 53 carries. I think they had 22 carries in a row, like running plays. Why you don't, take a beat and stack the box when that is happening, I just don't know. The question Alan posed on here was, hey, was Gus outcoached? I don't know if it was Gus that was outcoached, more so than because then, once they got ahead and they got the lead or they could pound the rock, then they flushed the pass and we kind of panicked, right? So they were able to rush, and because they were able to rush, they shut down our running game and our passing game at the same time. And our offensive line couldn't stop 4 down linemen. I mean, if you got a four down pass rush and you got a play call, like a passing play call, you got to be able to stop that. If you can't stop that, then I don't know what to tell you. So, for me, I do think our defense was outcoached. And there's going to have to be some hard questions around that. And Addison Williams going forward. You know, he kind of did better the last couple of games, was able to adjust. I just don't think they prepped. I think they focused on recruiting because of when this bowl game was played. It was too close. And because we had an opponent that could run the ball, was good on fundamentals, and didn't make stupid penalties, right?
Yep.
Again, that killed stops. Then you ended up what we ended up with, which was they were able to pound the rock because they caught up and they were able to rush our defense and our offense. Baker was open before. We couldn't get the ball to Baker because Baker was doing, and Kobe were all long throws, right? They were all go routes.
Shots. Yep.
And if you're able to pin your ears back and able to get after the quarterback, you stop that. And oh, by the way, you're also shutting down all the running lanes. And I think RJ Harvey must have been hurt because there was a long stretch where he didn't get any carries. What do you guys think? I mean, that's just my overall feel on this game.
Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's a lot to say, but there's not much to say because it was the same story as it's been all season long. Untimely turnovers, blowing a lead that we had. You know, we are up 17-3 and couldn't sustain it. And then, of course, getting torched on the ground. I mean, it's like, you know, maybe Gus didn't got out coached, but someone didn't make adjustments, whether it was him or whether it was Addison Williams. But the same thing happened. I mean, where Roger said 22 running, it was actually 24 straight plays that they ran. Georgia Tech ran a running play. So
that's ridiculous.
You know it's coming. I mean, I don't know, like, stack the box. They weren't like lighting it up in the air. So we know the run was coming and we still couldn't stop it. It's just, you know, with the defensive line that we have, that's supposed to get pressure on the QB, and just, I know we have issues with tackling, but if you know that play is coming, there's got to be a strategy to be able to stop it. 24 straight plays, it's no longer a question. So I just thought it was a disappointing game all around. I think RJ Harvey did feel like he got injured at one point. I also thought, I know JRP got injured at the end of the game, but he didn't look as good either. The only reason our passing attempt number was even in the sevens, like you said, was because of Timmy's inflated numbers at the end. JRP was actually at 6.6 pass attempts or yard per attempt, and he only had 32 rushing yards. Pretty much stopped running there for most of the later part of the game. I thought he played one of his worst games. He didn't. I know in the beginning he was lighting it up, but he had that first drive at a great 9-yard run. He obviously had the great throw to Javon, but after that, it just really slowed it. You know, he really tailed off there at the end. It was just an overall disappointing performance, whether it was preparation and focusing too much on recruiting or not being able to make adjustments in game. But there's no reason to blow a 17-3 lead, you know, an hour from home when everything was hitting on all cylinders in the beginning. And then it was just a cascade of mistakes, missed field goals, RJ's turnover. To your point about JRP, he was 16 of 29. That's one of his worst performances all season long. That's why I said it. One of his worst performances all season. And then blowing that lead, I mean, I saw the turnover, and we couldn't get anything going on offense, and then the defense started to collapse, and then you lost the confidence in Colton Boomer, and we go for it on 4th and 11. I thought that was a bad play when we were still in the game. Like, I would have given him another chance.
Well, you got to remember though, it was 4th and 11. Why? Because we had a 4th and 1, and we had a penalty.
Right. So another mistake, another mental mistake there. So to me, it's just the same thing that happened all year. It's not a surprising result. It was one of those games we were favored by 4.5, like, which we've been all year. It's been anywhere from like 3.5 to 6.5 points we're favored by. We get out to an early lead, and then the mistakes start happening, and same story. And now UCF finishes with a under 500 record for the first time since 2016, the first time in Gus Malzahn's head coaching career. And I think they need to take a hard look in the mirror and be able to correct these mistakes. Because I don't think talent alone, unless, like you said, Trey, unless it's just NFL players at every position, which I don't think that's going to be the case next year.
Yeah.
That they're going to have to be able to, the talent is there to win these games. But if you keep making the same mistake and don't correct it, whether it's from the coaching on down to the players, something's got to change, or it's going to be the same story. Because
even though fundamentals aren't there, dude. I mean, even look at Kobe with the catch, or making stupid penalties when in critical situations on 4th and 1. Was it this one that Javon, or last game that Javon was offsides, lined up offsides or something like that? Just silly, stupid things. I think we have talent. I just don't think the coaching fundamentals are there. Like, you see, what are you? I remember one of the things that we talked about with when Frost was there was we were having trouble tackling. So what'd they do? They got the tackling donuts out, and they had everybody focus on tackling defensively for a while. And I mean, it was literally over and over and over. And Trey, you can attest to it. You were at the practices. Like, they saw a problem fundamentally, and they attacked the problem fundamentally. I just didn't see from a scheme. I didn't see preparedness. I saw, I saw some guys balling out early. They got some confidence, which was great. Georgia Tech was playing like with too much energy. And, the other thing that I said in the text thread before the game, like a couple days before the game, was Georgia Tech wants this game and has a lot of motivation. UCF, I think, wanted the game, but didn't have that drive to dig deep. And that's what you saw in this game. Because another thing we've been talking about all season is what happens to this team when they hit adversity. Can they pull it together within the game? They can pull it together for the next game, right? We've seen that over and over again. But during the game, can they do that? And I did not see that in this game either.
And I agree. And they've had a lot of trouble with in-game adversity. And another thing too, we talk about the defense playing bad, but also in the second half, UCF only had 4 first downs the entire half. So the offense came up completely flat. Whether that was, some drop passes, some turnovers, sure, but 4 first downs, they weren't getting anything going on offense either. So that speaks to that adversity there too. They faced it on both sides of the balls on the ball, and they came up short.
Well, and I think the offense hurt the defense because of that. And I think the defense hurt themselves. But again, this is a complete team loss. This is the first time I'm going to say this all season long. The offense, though, hung the defense out to dry, because our strength versus their strength. Our strength is scoring points. Their strength, playing defense and running the ball, right? If you play to our potential, which we were early in the first quarter, right? If you play to our potential and you score early, they can't catch you. I mean, Baylor the exception, of course, but they can't play their strength. So now your defense is playing against their weakness, which King clearly could. I mean, early on, you saw how many he threw in the dirt. He was not an accurate passer. If we would have been able to maintain that lead where we made them do that, then you play to our strength defensively, and it's a much different game. So it's complementary football, number one. Number two, all 3 phases, the kicking game failed miserably, obviously, as well. And go ahead, Trey.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gus got out-coached, but I think all of them got out-coached. Speaking to the defense, as a head coach, I know that you can override anybody's call, period, as a head coach. That's one of the awesome things about being a head coach. If you want a defensive play, Gus could not know anything about defense. If he's like, Coach Addison, I want you to put everybody in the box, he's going to do that. Like, I've heard Coach Frost tell Coach Chins, I want y'all to run this. I've heard Coach O'Leary yell at Coach Summers, I want you to run. Like, I've heard it happen. And what do? We go and run it because that's your boss. Like, so I put some of the blame on Gus as well, because it's not rocket science to see, hey, they're just going to keep running the ball. Let's do something to stop it. Let's put more.
Well, it's not rocket science after the 15th time in a row.
Yeah, not after the 7th time in a row. You're like, okay, guys, they're not throwing the football. They're just going to try to run the game. And the thing is, like I've always said, if we're not going to change, why would anybody else pass the ball if, one, we struggle at run fits, two, we're not making any adjustments, we're still playing with a normal box. Like, I'm not going to change. I'm going to run the ball too, because if you look at most 90% of our games this year, we've done nothing to show that we can stop the run consistently. Like, so
that's got to be.
I
mean, we know that that's a focus in recruiting, but it's got to be a focus in spring ball. Like,
yeah, I don't even think it's at this point after watching it. I don't even think it's necessarily a players thing. Do we need to get better players? Yes, we do. But just schematically, it makes zero sense why we don't put more hats in the box. We put hats in the box one game to stop the run, and we legitimately stopped the run against one of the best running teams in the country. If not, I think they were at the time, were the best running team in the country.
Oklahoma was a good running team too, and we pretty much stopped them too.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, again,
that's why I'm saying there could not have been prep this game. Like, the way that we just came out in our base defense, didn't make any adjustments. We could not have been prep. We could not have.
But you cannot
prep, make the adjustment in the game.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you cannot prep for a team and still be like, hey. At least this is what we like. We
still stack the box.
I remember all year. I always go back to the Memphis Conference Championship game. They threw out so many different things, which I always give credit to Coach Norvell. He took all the plays we struggled with from the entire season versus every team we played, and he sprinkled them in versus Memphis, like that game the second time we played them. So, like, we came back to the sideline like, hey, they're running this play that we saw that gave us problems versus SMU. Or we're running this play that gave us problems versus Temple. So what we do, we'd be like, hey, you guys remember when we did this versus Temple versus SMU? Yeah, we're going to run these plays. Forget about what we prepped for. We're going to have to – like, that's what adjusting is. Like, you can't just be like, oh, they're running something that's beating our defense. Well, let's see if we can go stop them this time. Go do it again. Like, to me, that's terrible coaching to me. Like, so, like, yeah, they might not have prepped, and I don't think that they prepped again. That was my worry, like, for 15 – that was my poison last week, that for 15 practices we see the same team. Like, that doesn't look like they've been practicing this time. And like, that's fine if you don't prep. But again, not adjusting when they're running the ball, you said 24 times in a row.
Mm-hmm.
After 5-6 times, somebody should be yelling at a coach. I'm going to be honest. We used to not yell, but we'd be like, look, coach, they're doing this. We need to make an adjustment and change it. And
someone has to say something after that.
Yeah, like, you can't just keep walking into a bar fight, getting your butt kicked, walking out, and then thinking something's going to change when you go back in. Like, that's just insanity. So somebody's got to say something, and again, that goes back to just even leadership. And we've talked about it. Guys that we played with, there's a standard that you hold of your teammates. There's a standard that you hold of your coaches, and there's a standard that you hold yourself to. You don't ever want to fail yourself in any of those aspects. If you feel like the coaches are failing you, you tell the coaches. If you feel like your teammates are failing you, you tell your teammates. If you feel like you're failing your team, you tell your team, like, I've been failing you, I'm going to do better. Like, I don't see any leadership. I rarely have seen that all season, and I've spoke to it. And I think that's something that has to change too.
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about this too, offensively, you're seeing fundamentals again, blocking whiffs, RJ Harvey, like, whiffing hardcore. You've got the Georgia Tech strategic. Now, this is something that I think they did, and I'll call it out. Strategic injuries. You notice how many injuries we saw on the defense. As soon as we got a little momentum going, that was 100%. That was 100%.
You practice that.
Yep, and those guys are back the next play. They did a good job of breaking up our rhythm in the second half in the passing game. 100% did that on purpose. And anybody who thinks they didn't.
I don't know if it's college or pro. Is it that they throw a flag if you – it might – or you can't come back in. There's something that – I don't know if it's college or pro. You might get fined or something in the NFL.
You get to – in college, you sit out a play, right? You have to sit out one play.
Yeah. Yep. I think in the pros, if you are deemed like that, you get fined if you're intentionally pretending.
Well, there's rules around it too, but, like, it's rarely enforced. Rarely enforced, and I'm especially in a bowl game. So I just I think that was something they did. It was just a little a little wrinkle that they put in there to throw off our passing game because John Rice Plumlee could not get into a rhythm. And I think that's preparation.
Yeah, I agree. I again, like you said, this was probably one of his worst games, if not the worst, passing wise for him. Again, it's like this is the wrong time to have it. You don't want to have it at, the final game of the season. You don't want, this is when you want to put your duds out. You want to have your best game. So,
one thing I do want to kind of say too, Alan, because you mentioned the D line, right? The D line is designed to get pressure, right? Once that pressure is done or dealt with, the linebackers have to fill the gaps and play the difference. Our guys were getting pressure, but they were doing zone blocking schemes, which means as soon as they knew they were going to pressure, as soon as they doubled up on those guys to get them out of the way or wall them off, right? Pull a guard, pull whatever to set up wherever that tunnel or that gap was going to be. That linebacker's got to be there to fill the gap. And so it was taking a second or two for it to develop. They then got their tunnel, but there was nobody to be found, either safety or otherwise, except for DeCorian Patterson. Like I'll give him some props. Because
is that number 11? What number is that?
I don't remember what his number is, but he was a one-year player. He's not playing.
He had his best game of the year this year. He didn't play most of the first half of the year.
Yeah, he didn't play because he was injured. He had not an eye injury. He had an injury for a lot of the games. But he was the only one running to the ball, coming up from the defensive backs to stop open field tackles, maintaining the edges. I think he was playing the night position or nickel position. And, he was the only one all year that I really saw do a good job of that. And he did a good job of this game. Other than that, the safeties weren't plugging the gaps. We weren't blitzing with the safeties, or if we were, they were, that we had corner blitzes or whatever. There was nothing to help the middle. And that's where all of these runs were going through. They were not going sideline to sideline. It was power and zone blocking schemes straight up the A gap, B gap. And there was nobody there.
Yeah.
They got funneled and then there was nobody there. Yeah. All right. And that's not on the defensive line, by the way. Just so you know.
No, this is linebackers and safety.
No, I said they put pressure, and then I said the linebackers didn't follow up with anything good. So.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk a little bit. That this is over. I mean, I think we've put this to bed, unless Trey wants to yell about it in his segment. Nope. But let's talk a little bit about next year. So we finished the season, as Alan said, 6-7, first time under 500 since 2016. I think it was the first time in 8 tries or something like that we've lost in Tampa at the Bucs Stadium. So a lot of first. You talked about Gus Malzahn, first losing season. So what does this mean for next year? Like what is it? It feels, as a fan, it feels kind of listless because it doesn't feel like there's anything to build off of, right? So we're basically saying, hey, we've got new guys coming in and we'll rebuild from there. And we did get confirmation that RJ Harvey and Javon Baker are back. Kobe has not announced it, but the expectation is he's back as well. And, obviously we've got some other pieces that we're looking to bring in. Josh Selskar is not coming back. We talked about Katie McDaniel not coming back. Josh Selskar announced recently in the last couple of days that he's not coming back. Experienced guy. I just think he was going to get crowded out with all the people that we were bringing in at defensive end.
Is he going to the draft or is he going to the portal?
Transfer. He's going to the portal.
Now,
the only person that's declared for the draft is Holler.
Yeah, is Alec Holler. Good dude, by the way. Wish him nothing but luck. And, so what does this mean, like losing this game? What does this mean for next season? And, how do we stop this from happening next year? What are your thoughts? Alan?
I mean, I'll say this. We get like pretty upset about, bowl losses, especially because it's, the last game of the season, and that's kind of what sticks with you throughout the offseason. You want to finish your season on a high note, but I don't really think the bowl game has too much of an impact on next season, other than maybe if some young guys get to play or something like that. And we've seen plenty of times we've lost the bowl game and in the following season we've had a great year, or you've won the bowl game and the next year's been total crap. I think it's about the players that you have coming back, the players that you have coming in. So I don't think this one game alone, will dictate what happens next year. But it does tell us, as all the other losses told us this year, where we need to improve. We talked about many of those already. The coaching has to improve. The tackling has to improve. The mental mistakes have to improve. The development of certain players needs to improve. Obviously, we have certain positions of need, like linebacker, that we really need to fill in those gaps. And, obviously, potentially quarterback and a few other positions. So I think right now, obviously, we did a great job in the recruiting class. We're still adding in transfers, which I know we'll get into. We've had 6 transfers so far, and I think there's going to be a lot more because there still are plenty of positions like linebacker, like defensive end. Now that we know that we're losing Morris Brash and Selascar, we're going to need to fill in that, which we got a defensive end transfer today, offensive line, a couple other positions. But I think we have a solid foundation for next year. When you talk about Baker and Harvey coming back, and most likely Hudson coming back, you have your 3-headed monster that we've talked about. We have obviously a young up and coming secondary. We have some transfers coming in at key positions and are expecting to get more. So I think we have at least a decent foundation. But the things, I don't think there's any 1 or 10 players that are going to come in and just completely rewrite the script from this year. Like, they need to make improvements at all the things I just discussed, regardless. Even if the talent improves tenfold next year, I think they're still going to, be faced with some of those mistakes that they've made, and they're going to have to be able to deal with that adversity a lot better next season. So I still obviously think, I just don't think this one game alone dictates too much into next year, but either it's going to change dramatically because the coaching staff will get better and make sure those fixes are made, or we're going to be in a similar situation next year. And because the schedule is not getting any easier, and the talent may get better next year, but a lot of those 4-star guys and stuff we brought in are true freshmen or redshirt freshmen. They're probably not ready to play. So we're still going to be relying on a lot of the same guys that we relied on this year, like the big 3 that we talked about, some of the same offensive linemen, a lot of the same secondary players, a lot of the same defensive tackles. So, I think there's a lot of improvements to be made, and I think we'll get some guys in to fill those holes we have on the roster, but it's going to be a very similar result unless these mistakes that we had this year change.
All right, Trey, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I truthfully think it's going to be, you have to improve at coaching. I don't know where it's at. I don't know how it's done, but there was absolutely too many games where we went into the games. We played great, like you say, those scripted plays, and we don't make any more adjustments, or we don't make good adjustments. Like it's too many of that. And that to me is coaching. Again, hopefully, we lose a couple of key pieces at key spots. But again, I think we recruit very well. I think the transfer portal has been well for us so far. So I don't think we're going to be at a talent deficit. I just think, again, we're going to have to coach these guys better. The tackling has to improve significantly. Offensively, play calling needs to improve as far as just understanding the flow of the game, understanding what you're getting, making the changes. And then the little things. That's what a lot of these games that I've seen, for the most part, we don't do the little things well. If you're going to do anything well, it needs to be those little things. Because that's what kind of came back to bite us in the butt most of these games. And I think, again, that's coaching, that's leadership, that goes to a lot of it. So, again, it's going to be interesting to see what's going on with just this team in general, because I don't know if they can do this next year. I don't know if we can go into next season and just be like 6 and 7's okay. I don't think that's acceptable. I don't think a stretch where we lose 5 games the way we lost is okay. Like, I think it's going to get a little bit, toasty not as far as guys' jobs, but we're going to have to start having these conversations because, I mean, from when Gus is
you know what? I disagree. I don't think it'll be Gus getting toasty, but I do
no. I'm just saying
think the
something
coordinator
has to change. Yeah, like, and again, I think just from the overall program, I think this is Gus's his 4th year now. He just finished.
It will be his 4th year.
It will be.
Like at the end of this season was his 4th.
No, third was his.
So third. I think after the end of his 3rd year, what is the trajectory of UCF like right now? Like before when he got here, how much have we significantly improved just from the on-field product?
I mean, that's kind of hard to say.
From the on-field product. But
that's kind of hard. That's kind of hard to say though, because of who we were playing in competition, right? So we're playing Oklahoma now. We're not playing Memphis. We're not playing anybody else, right?
I agree. But again, like this is the things we've said. There's countless times we've said this looks like a 10-win team. Like we have the talent to be a 9-10-win team.
Oh, I agree.
We've said that. I feel like I've heard that for 2 years at least. You know, like when we got JRP last year, I thought like that's the kind of talent we're talking about. People were talking about, I know for a fact this year, this is probably be one of the better teams since, when we were playing those other teams. Like I know people were saying that in the building.
Well, let me ask you this question. Would your team have run through this schedule?
What do you mean by run through? I don't think we have the same
win every game or win like I don't know.
I don't. Well, the competitor in me says we weren't losing. Period, no matter what.
Well, I know what your competitor says.
Yeah, realistically, our teams weren't. We could play this physical kind of style of games. We were a lot more of a physical team than this team. And I think that's where we kind of had the edge because we were a George O'Leary. Like our roots of our team, all of our great guys were George O'Leary guys. You don't play football for Coach O'Leary if you're not physical. It doesn't matter who you are. He doesn't recruit soft kids. If he does, they don't play on the field. On offense, all those guys can block. I don't know if you remember Traquan Smith, great blockers at receiver. Like these guys are physical football players at every aspect of football.
And that was 2013 and 2014 too. Those wide receivers were blocking like crazy.
Yeah, and that's what at least my class. That's what we saw. Like that was the only way we were going to play. So I think that's not like that wasn't this team. That was never this team. We would tackle. We tackle physical. We would hit. Now we miss tackles. Yeah, everybody does. But you would never say that our team wasn't physical when we were playing. Like we might mess up. We might blow coverages. We might get beat. We were never going to be.
So is it the coaching or is it the team that's soft?
Well, real quick, I mean, you said like when Trey asked the question about the trajectory and you said we're playing harder competition, the problem was Gus was still losing in the American. He lost 3 games. He lost 4 games last year and 3 the previous year. So we talk about, yes, the schedule was harder this year, but everyone said the talent was there to be like a dark horse Big 12 contender, even though that might have been a little ridiculous. Either way, the 3
I don't think it was ridiculous. I just think that the players just didn't execute. And I think, I mean, losing JRP was a big part of that too. We'll never know because we don't know what would have happened at Baylor with JRP. We don't know what would have happened at Oklahoma with JRP. We don't know what would have happened at Texas Tech with JRP. We just don't know. I mean, you look at Timmy, and Timmy was a backup in the American, right? He played for the Cows. Obviously, he started there, right? For his freshman year, but then he didn't play because he sat out. And then, the one time he did play, he was the backup to what's his name that everybody was arguing for as the starter. You know what I mean?
Timmy started at USF.
Well, I know he did his first year, but then he sat because he transferred because he lost to Bohannon, who was the transfer from Baylor. So he was backup to Bohannon, and then he transferred. Then he sat. Then he came in, and I don't know why I can't remember his name. The kid that is now, yes, the guy
Keen.
That was the back, huh?
Keen.
Yes, Mikey Keene.
Oh yeah.
He was behind Mikey Keene, right? And the scuttlebutt coming out of this offseason was that Timmy didn't know our scheme, didn't learn our scheme, and Tommy Castellanos the same thing, and wasn't picking up on it, but he did better this offseason. right? And when he got in and he played his best when the plays broke down, right? But at the end of the day, Timmy led this team for a significant number of games, and a lot of those games were 6 points or less, 3 points or less, right? So is this a 10-win team? Maybe. Is this a 9-win team? Maybe. Is this an 8-win team? Maybe. But it's better than a 6-win team, and in a power conference, better than a 2-win team in the conference, right? So, when I look, or 3-win, whatever we ended up at,
3.
When I look at this, it's hard to compare that and say, okay, the trajectory was up or down. What I will say is we didn't have the depth at quarterback that we needed last year. Timmy did okay. I hate to I'm not trying to beat Timmy down here, but had we had JRP those games, a healthy JRP, and even when he came back, he was 60%, 70%, 80%, as he was rushed back, would we have won more games? So can I tell you, is it an upward trajectory or not? I can't tell you, because realistically speaking, I think this game is all about prep. I'll say it over again. This team was not prepped. The coaches were not prepped. They were not ready because they were recruiting. That's what I saw on the field. That's what I saw.
The reason at least I'm I don't know, because again, you have the conference championship game last year where, what are we doing? You put in, you put Tommy in you start him for 2 games, then 2 series or something like that, and you yank him out for a JRP. If this is what you were going to do, you might as well just play JRP. I don't understand that. And then you had, again, last year we had losses.
They got him well enough to go back in, and Tommy wasn't doing anything good against Tulane. That's what that was.
And that's,
and Mikey Keene decided to sit out because he was going to transfer.
Yeah.
So you didn't have Keene to put in. JRP had to go back out.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. I guess it's the expectations to me at least, of what I thought the program would be going into at the end of year 3 of Gus. This isn't what I thought we'd be talking about going into year 4. I didn't think we were talking about a team that wouldn't be physical. I didn't think we'd talk about a team that, wow, did we really make coaching adjustments? Which that's kind of the thing that's been hung over him during his coaching careers. He doesn't really make a lot of adjustments,
right?
And he can recruit guys, but he doesn't necessarily develop guys.
Well, offensively, by and large, we did well. I mean, even without JRP, right? Offensively, we were still putting up yards and points. The problem we had was defensively, and the adjustments. We've got a literally rookie defensive coordinator who's a great recruiter, and everybody was on board with doing this because he's a great recruiter. And I think that will pay dividends long run. I don't think he was ready for this job. And even the player said when he was in the booth and when he came down on the field, it was a lot better. But then again, a key to that too is part of the reason they said it was better was because he was involved in getting in people's ears and doing all of that other stuff, which tells me that the leadership on the sideline of the team, and the team member who said this, right, was talking about Addy and how he was, throughout the season and how he got better. Again, that tells me the team, and I don't know if that's because we have so many transfers or what, but that team cohesion, and we had no leaders. Selskar wasn't a leader. He was too quiet. You hear it, everybody who was seniors and it was too quiet. Linebacker, Johnson, too quiet. We didn't have any of those vocal leaders that would step up and say, we will not lose this game. So again, I
don't know any, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know any quiet defenders who are leaders. You can't be a leader and be quiet on defense. I don't even really know a lot of guys on defense who are quiet, period. There's just something about defense that you're either very vocal, your play is very vocal, something about you has to be loud. Whether you talk a loud game, whether your game speaks for itself. Mike Hughes didn't talk a lot, but Mike Hughes' play was screaming. And when he started playing, he'd get fired up, but he didn't talk much. But Shaquem Griffin was a loud vocal leader.
Well, but he also said that he wasn't that way because, vocally, because he was new to the team.
Yeah,
right.
Of course, so, but there's times where Mike were like, hey, we got to step it up. And this was early. Like, that's the thing. Like, I just don't think that, I don't know what it's to. I don't think the team was really a team. That's what I attribute all of our success to, was just, we were a bunch of guys who wanted to fight for each other, whether we were losing, whether we were winning. We wanted to fight for each other. We wanted to do our jobs to be great for each other. And we hold each other accountable. We cannot get beat on plays. Guys would come to the sideline and say, hey, that's my bad, I'm going to fix it. Like, I was there for a couple of games. I was watching it on the sideline. Guys don't do that. Like, that's the main problem player-wise for me. There's not enough leaders on the team. And everybody doesn't have to be rah, get in your butt and just scream and rip you a new one kind of leader. You don't have to be that. But if something's wrong, correct it. There's always a way to do it and approach it. I just think that's what we're lacking from players. Coaching-wise, again, I don't see the coaching growth from year one of Gus to what I thought it would be going into year 4. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I do in some aspects. Our quarterback play was a lot better since Henshaw came in. We all knew that Chip Lindsey was on his way out. When he left for North Carolina, that told you everything you needed to know about that dynamic, right? Yeah. I do see growth offensively. I don't see it defensively, but I also can't blame the defensive coordinator other than the fact that he has the title, because he's a rookie defensive coordinator. He's never done this before, let alone in a P5 level. So that's
there's an inherent flaw somewhere. I mean, because we keep going back and forth. It's like, okay, we have the talent, but maybe it's not the coaching because they've made improvements. Well, it's something. There's some sort of flaw. Like, we can blame it on a lot of things: harder schedule, first year of this Big 12 schedule grind, rookie defensive coordinator, injuries. But at somewhere, there's got to be some sort of blame place. Yes, there was improvements. If we're all agreeing that the talent was better than 6 wins, there's some sort of flaw that's going on. And I think the main issues that the Auburn fan base, as crazy as they may be about Gus, some of it at least is true. When we talk about, maybe not, he's a great recruiter. He connects with guys, but he's not developing. It seems that way because, maybe JRP made improvements, but like, I know it's still early in his tenure, but like, there's no one's really going to the NFL from his roster so far. I know they're all like underclassmen, but I don't see any like standout, hey, ready to go to the NFL guys yet that are like, you saw that in years past with certain guys like Jacoby Glenn and Traquan Smith. You're like, whoa, that's going to be an NFL player. Like, I'm not seeing that right now with any like surefire, like draft picks and just in general, it just seems like there's something inherently wrong. Like, maybe I'm not saying it can't be improved. It won't turn around, but there's a reason like Gus, like, really always hovered around like 8-9 wins. He never really seemed to get over the hump, and it feels that way now. He had 3 losses in the American in back-to-back years. He didn't win the American Athletic when he had a chance to. And in this first year, we all agreed we had the talent to win 8, 9, or 10 games, yet the same repetitive mistakes. Forget the bowl game and not preparing. The regular season, we made the same mistakes over and over, whether it's his fault or one of the OC or DC, that's fine, but something is not gelling.
And that's where, like, I don't remember when I harp on the losses. We can get away with not bad coaching, but these mistakes. And we were just more talented than a lot of the teams in the American. I've consistently said the main 2 things that you notice the jump from a G5 conference to a big Power 5 conference, it's up front on the line play, which we talked about. Most of the teams we played look bigger than us. We've discussed that up front in the O-line, D-line. That's except the only teams that really didn't look bigger than us were the teams that came from the American or the other conferences with us.
Right.
Like, so that's number 1. And number 2, it's the coaching difference. A lot of these guys have coached either high-level football a long time or they have NFL experience. So the adjustments happen not after. They're not going to adjust at halftime when they come in. No, they're adjusting after 1 or 2 drives. They're making adjustments. Oh, then you change? Okay, we're going to make another adjustment after then. They make so many more adjustments, and they make them so much faster. That was the difference to me. It was never the skill guys or the quarterback, because we are always going to have elite-level skill guys. As you see, we always are putting those guys in the NFL. But the 2 things that we struggle with was up front and coaching. Those are the noticeable difference to me. So, yeah, you're going to go from winning 3 to 4 games, losing 3 to 4 games in the American. You go to a bigger conference with these same issues, you're going to lose 6 games, 7 games because of that. Like, the games that we lost, we couldn't stop the run. We weren't physical, and we got out coached, or we did something dumb that cost us games. Like, I don't think it was anything that a lot of these teams did, in my opinion. I think it was more of what we did, which that's my problem with. Like, just going into year 3, I didn't think this would be the problem. I heard about this as Gus and his staff. I try not to, again, attribute what people say, like, oh, he doesn't do this. You know, there could be a multitude of reasons he did things at Auburn, but this is something consistent that I am seeing. And we have to acknowledge that, hey, Gus might recruit well. Does he develop well? That was the thing about O'Leary that was kind of flipped. He didn't recruit those big 4-star, 5-star guys. Well, he developed them into, and Roger, you talked about it, he developed a lot of 2-star, 3-star guys into NFL players. You know, that's what I would rather have that than getting the 4-star, 5-star guys who don't pan out and end up, you know, just being fringe kind of guys. So I don't know. I think that was my question when I was saying, is it not necessarily just Gus, but just overall, like, what is the trajectory going into year 4? Like, is this acceptable, I guess, to what we signed up for with Gus?
Okay, that's a big question. Now, no. In the future, who knows? I think this was an adjustment for Gus too, because again, we also had our personnel set up for a league that traditionally passes a lot, air raid styles and everything else. And we didn't get that in the Big 12 this year. No. We got Kansas, we got Kansas State, we got Oklahoma State, we got even Oklahoma ran a lot more this year, right? So again, this was not the Big 12 that we were set up for. And it'll be interesting to see how long it takes for us to do the adjustments. But I think even Gus made that comment himself. So I don't know. I mean, to me, I see positive trajectory of pieces. I see it in recruiting. I see it in the offensive coaching. I don't see it defensively. And part of that is a head coach's decision to put and this is what he's known for. I've talked to other Auburn coaches, former coaches, other Auburn players. They love the fact, and they have a huge connection with Gus post their careers, right? Or when they moved on to something else, because he gives shots to guys who are in his circle, right? And gives them the opportunity, even if they don't have a lot of credentials behind their name, right? Yeah. Which this year I think burned us. We'll see how fast Addison Williams can flip the script and learn on the job, because that's essentially what he was doing. All right. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about UCF's recruiting. We're going to do a signing day recap in more detail next week. This week we didn't really want to do that because we had the bowl game to talk about. But UCF did sign 18 of 19 of their verbal commits. We did miss out on Day Farmer. He flipped to West Virginia. There's a lot of personal things going on in his life that may have pushed him to make that flip. I think that it was a situation where he needed to get out of the state. So at least that's what the rumors are. Good kid, but he needed to get out of the state and the situation he was in for a while. So I think that's where we lost Day. Remember, he flipped to us, and then he flipped to West Virginia. It is the best signing class in UCF history. I mean, we finished, depending on who you look at, it's 29 to 32 for the national ranking. That was with only 18 commits. The second in the Big 12 and the only one that finished ahead of us only finished because they had a lot more commits. We still were number one in the new Big 12, not including Texas and Oklahoma. We were still number one in average star commit in the Big 12. So recruiting, high school recruiting was a huge, huge win, in my opinion. In addition to that, 13 of those players will be reporting early. So they will get that extra spring practice. They will get that the conditioning to get them ready for for the season to come. So by all accounts, a very, very successful recruiting class for UCF. And I do think we did see obviously progress in that. And I think we'll continue to see progress. In fact, UCF landed 2025 commit. And of course it's verbal and it's a 2025 commit, but 4-star wide receiver, Santonio Isaac from Tampa. So again, that's one of those areas where Gus has been focusing, is the Tampa area and holding that down, as well as Georgia. And so there's a lot of buzz for that 2025 class. And then obviously we had EJ Colson for 2024 that flipped, or 2025 that reclassified for 2024. He would have also been a 2025 class member. So again, earliest we're seeing 4-star commits verbally committing to UCF. I think the earliest before was a year. This is well beyond that. So it bodes well for high school recruiting in the future. Now in the transfer portal, we're still active, and there's going to be more activity after it opens back up January 3rd. KJ Jefferson, we've been talking about quarterbacks. KJ Jefferson right now on 3 today reported that we are to keep an eye out on KJ Jefferson to UCF. KJ is actually in Orlando right now. Nope, can't be on a visit until January 3rd, and at least an official visit where he can talk to coaches. He can walk around campus. He can talk about NLI. He can do all of those things, but he cannot talk to the coaches during the dead period. So I'd imagine this is kind of like what it was during COVID, where players would come in, kind of do their own tour of the facilities on their own, just not talk to the coaches. I think this is him prepping to potentially sign with UCF, be able to hammer out the NLI, not NLI. I always do that. NIL, the NIL details, because it's a big part of this, and to see the campus, because I do think that given all the national media has been saying KJ would be the best fit for UCF and vice versa. And so I think that's a huge, huge thing that's happening right now. And we definitely need to keep an eye on KJ Jefferson. Again, we'll talk about him a little bit more next week. But if you haven't watched his highlights, this is a running quarterback, RPO style quarterback, and he's big.
He's big.
So beat Florida in the Swamp this year. So be nice to beat him in the Swamp next year with him at the helm as well. So other than that, we've also got 3 other transfer, a tight end, Evan Morris from MSU. We talked about Miles Montgomery a little bit last week from Cincinnati. He did end up committing, which was awesome. He's a good change of pace back, and he's pretty solid. And then a D lineman from UT Martin. You kind of look at each other like, okay, D lineman from UT Martin. His name's Dotson. It's like UT Martin, really? And he was a very sought after. In fact, I think he held a Texas A&M offer as well. So this is a kid that did very, very well at the level he was in. He's got good size. I think he was Alan? I think he's
6'5", 255 pounds.
Yeah. So good size kid. Will be brought in for the defensive line. So it'll be interesting to see there.
And don't forget, it's interesting. We just had obviously Jason Johnson, who was our best linebacker for the past 2 seasons, come in from the FCS, was an All-American there. This kid Dotson was an All-American this past season and a 2-time all first team member in his conference. So as much as we may be like, FCS, I mean, look at our 2, Walter Yates and Jason Johnson, who are 2 best linebackers, were both from the FCS, and Jason Johnson was all Big 12 second team this year. So if you go back a year before that, there was that other linebacker, Brian Armstrong, I think it was. Bryson, that he was our leading tackler, and he was also from the FCS and All-American. So I think those type of recruits are great. Maybe they're under recruited in high school and now they're getting a chance to show on the big level. Like, give me one of those guys that's hungry, or someone that comes from like Alabama, Georgia. I think I love those two type of recruits. But these FCS guys, I mean, yeah, not all of them are going to hit, but an All-American that's a 2-time All-Conference player, I think that
take a shot on that.
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the even the guys that you mentioned that they've panned out really well, and I know there's another guy that plays at FSU. He's probably going to be a top 10 pick in the draft, and he came from FCS. So again, a lot of these guys, most of the time they go FCS because again they're either under recruited. A lot of guys just hit random growth spurts and just grow into their bodies. Maybe it's their first time playing the sport, like they're late in their senior year. Like it happens a lot of time where a lot of these talented players slip through the cracks. And again, if you can evaluate talent, you can find it anywhere. And I think that's what they've shown, Gus and them have shown to do, to get very good players from the FCS level that can contribute, so.
Absolutely.
All right. So we'll delve into that in a little bit more detail next week when we have a little bit more time. And Trey, I kind of popped this on the screen, but you kind of already had your Yells a Cloud segment. So yeah. I think we're good yelling. We've done our yelling. Alan jumped in there a little bit and yelled at a cloud too. I don't know what shape of cloud, but he was yelling at clouds as well. So I think we're good there. So I think we're going to go ahead and transition to a little bit of listener love this week. So we have 2 pieces of listener love. First, I want to give a shout out to some of our new subscribers: Kurt 2512, Black and Gold Knights, Gonzo in 60 seconds, which I love his because he's got a picture of a Mustang in his bio, and I'm a big Mustang guy. I have a 66, if you guys don't know that. So love Mustangs. I've always owned one. Engine Janida, Justin Crumpton, Terry, I'm going to probably murder this, Guaki or Guake, one of the two, and then AU Roboss. So thank you, everyone, for your follows. We'll keep shouting you out. Remember to follow, subscribe, give us comments. If you're on the podcast, make sure on podcasting platforms, make sure you're giving us a recommendation and then give us feedback so that we can make this better for you. And then lastly, we've got a little bit of a comment here that's directed at Alan. So Alan, I don't know if you saw this or not, but AU Roboss says, "Oh no, Alan, the term mumble crap died after Eminem effectively ended his growth as an artist by abusing the term." So what do you have to say to AU Roboss? Number one, thank you for commenting. What is your reaction to that, Alan?
I mean, I grew up when Eminem was in his prime, and I don't remember him using the term mumble rapper too often. I feel like that term is, maybe he started, but I feel like it's been popularized more in the last few years. And maybe he's saying the term died, but the type of rapper, a mumble rapper, definitely didn't die, because that's all these TikTok rappers and all
it is now. That's
all it is now. So maybe there's a new Gen Z term that I'm currently unaware of because I'm not Gen Z, but it certainly still exists if the term doesn't.
Well, what do you think, Trey? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like Alan said, a lot of this new rap now is just a whole bunch of mumble rap. Like,
yeah,
I like the beats of it. I legitimately don't understand what they're talking about, what they're trying to talk about. And it makes me feel old because I used to be kind of in style with it. But now I'm like, man, this isn't even rap. Y'all are just,
they're garbage now. The rappers are garbage now.
Yeah. But I feel like they said that about the stuff we used to listen to too. So I mean, I don't know.
Oh, dude, it's a revolving door generationally when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
it probably is. It probably is a revolving door, but it's true though. It's still true. It doesn't mean it's not true.
I mean, give me a little Dr. Dre or Bone Thugs and Harmony or whatever, and still love listening to them. Love, Lil Wayne. Love, Lil Birdman.
Eminem, G Unit. I mean, that was.
Yeah, I mean, but
Pac
even
and Biggie.
Yeah, I mean. There's a few rappers that came out that were good rappers that just got in trouble for a few of their stances. So I won't go into them, but I like their music, but can't really talk about them anymore because of some of the things that they've done, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. And, I still think there's good rappers out there. I'm not going to say that. And then, I know this sounds like I'm bandwagoning here, but I'm not actually. My son turned me on to XXXXTentacion. And no, I'm serious, and it was actually pretty good because his later stuff, he fused a lot of different styles in it, and it actually worked. So
he passed away, right?
He did. Yes, he did. At a very young age, was killed during he was getting robbed actually in his Lamborghini, coming from an auto place down in Miami, and was shot and killed, unfortunately. And he was just starting to peak. So, at first you saw that and you were like, okay, why are these kids talking about it? But then I actually listened to it and I was like, okay, I get it now. I understand. So, I don't know. There's still good rappers coming out. I'll disagree. They're not all mumble rappers. So, old guys, hey, he did put me on that. He did. Oh my gosh. Come on, Trey Neal. You're right. He put me on to that. So, whatever. But we're moving on from our rap lamentations here. I disagree. I think there's still some good rappers out there. So I'm just going to say that. But with that being said, we are missing Ben this week, but we still need to talk a little bit of hoops. So unfortunately, usually that means that I'm going to be talking if Ben's not here. Last game we had, the guys have been off for a little bit for the holiday. They'll be kicking into high gear. It'll be interesting to see if they did what I did this holiday season and gained 4 pounds and didn't work out, or if they, kept their game weight, over the holiday. But the last game we played was against FAMU. We won 69-56. That puts us at 8-3. This was an interesting game because this was proof of Johnny Dawkins' philosophy, which is defense wins games. And what was on display to me when I watched this game was just simply the fact that we had the depth to be able to run a full court press pretty much the entire game and disrupted completely FAMU. They actually shot 22 of 50 versus our 21 of 53. So they shot 44%. We shot 39.6%. 3-point, we were abysmal again. Well, not abysmal, 33%, which is on par. 8 for 24. They shot 5 for 18. Free throws, we were 19 of 27, so 70% better than what we'd been talking about before. But the big thing for me was the turnovers. So being able to play this press defense for pretty much the entirety of the game, we got them out of rhythm. We were able to be in our transition offense because our half court offense still hasn't been figured out. CJ Walker was back, which is awesome. He was doing 360 dunks pregame. If you were watching my the Twitter feed, you saw that and some pictures from the floor before the game started. CJ clearly is learning to be in a new role because he's playing further out away from the basket. He's not having to play center. And he was trying to score. So he did get his first point of the season off of a free throw. But he needs to stop pressing. So by and large, we won the game 69-56, pulled away at the end, but it was really turnovers. We had 24 points off of turnovers. So again, that's exactly what the press is designed to do. And in a tight game, if you want to break up the game, transition offense works better than half court offense, especially when we were shooting like we were. As far as players for this game to kind of watch, Shamari Allen has in the last few games has kind of picked up for Sellers. Sellers has been playing pretty rotten. He looks almost lost. when he's got the game. He's not smooth. He's not in rhythm. He scored all of his points from the free throw line. And as I said before, if we're going to do points in the paint and we're going to, play that type of game, we got to make our free throws. We did at 70% this game. However, that could have hurt us. Shamari Allen also picked us up from the 3-point line. He was 3 for 5. And Marcellus Avery also provided a boost off the bench and also went 3 for 5 from the 3-point line. Ibrahim Diallo, to understand how much of a difference that man can make on a game, 12 rebounds on his own, which is ridiculous in a game like this. But really, I feel like if this defense can continue the way that it is, it's going to be, and I've said this in the past, continue to generate turnovers, continue. And again, this was FAMU, but they did have number 13 who was giving us fits because he's a big, strong guy in the center. That's going to be a challenge for Diallo moving forward, and Omar Payne. But if this defense continues to play well, we have a transition D, we have transition offense, and these guys can be really, really exciting and make it through nights when they're having a tough time shooting. Did either one of you guys want to add anything to that?
I mean, I think, it was a little bit of a disappointing effort against FAMU. I think we all expected a little bit more of a blowout, kind of like we had against Maine. But it just, the first half we were only up 2 points, and then obviously we pulled away in the second half. But I still see a lot of like shooting woes on this team, whether it's from the free throw line or from beyond the arc. It still seems to, we still seem to have our issues there. And sometimes, they're wide open. It's not like a lot of these are all contested shots. So, not that there's high expectations going into conference play, but we only have one game left, one, quote unquote, easy game left, which is, the final game until we get into Big 12 play. So I think it's going to be a little bit scary going into these games, when these defenders are going to be closing out on 3-point shots, much faster. The down low players are going to be, I think bigger, faster, stronger than a lot of the opponents we've played over the past few weeks outside of, maybe Ole Miss and a couple other teams. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of team we are when we play these tougher opponents. Are we going to be, that scrappy team that really like keeps these games close and we're like, just happy that we're actually being competitive? Or are these going to turn into like every game blowouts that are done by the first half, where we pretty much have no chance? So I'm interested because there's been some games like, and Roger, you've done a great analysis where we've looked really, really good. And we've had some guys that we didn't necessarily expect to contribute like they have contributed. And, but then there's games like this last game where I don't think we looked that great against a much weaker opponent in FAMU, but we're getting healthy at the right time. Like CJ Walker's back, which is great. I know we've expected great things from him for now, 3-4 years, and he's always had the injury bug, but we'll see. I'm really just curious to see how this team play. I mean, these are going to be the best teams we've ever played on a consistent basis. I mean, this is not even Big 12 football. This is Big 12 basketball, where you have 2 of the past 3 national champions or 2 of the past 4 national champions. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how big that talent gap is. We talked about football, there's not a huge gap, but in basketball, I'm really curious to see, are we just going to get, the brakes beaten off us, or are we going to actually keep it competitive?
Well, and I think that's where the defense is going to make the difference, right? If we continue to keep hands and continue to have active hands and play a press defense, that makes up for a lot of warts offensively. And it really causes teams to, one, cut down the amount of time they have to set up their half court offense, right, and take more contested shots. And I think that if we have that active hands, and what I really love to see, and I think I've said this 2 weeks in a row, we are finishing the traps. We are another point of growth that I've seen is if we have a trap and it gets busted, we're playing the correct way, and we're getting back to the other half of the court quickly, which we weren't doing the right way before. So I think, this is what West Virginia was known for, is a press defense for the entire game. And I think we can do that. I think we'll win some games we don't expect to win. I think we'll lose more games, but we're expecting to lose games. So I'd say, I've heard some people say, hey, we won't get a win in the Big 12. I don't agree with that. I think West Virginia, OSU, we talked about that last week, but I think we'll also get some of those middle of the Big 12 teams that will play close and maybe grab a couple of wins. So, we'll see what happens, but defense is the great equalizer. If they can't score, doesn't matter how well you score, you're going to be in the game. And that's what I think they're going for here. The other part about this is, to your point too, is, folks like Marcellus Avery coming off the bench. I think with CJ being, especially the first half, he played a lot of the first half. The offense was completely out of sorts with him in. So it's about finding, for him, it's about finding the right lineups and the right matchups. And I think we have enough depth in those positions, and they play a good enough defense as a team to be able to match up with those lineups pretty well. We can go with a small ball lineup. We've got bigs if we need them. I think the biggest issue for our bigs is the fact that they're skinny, and they don't do as good a job on large or massive bigs. So are they going to be physical? Are they going to be able to be physical with the physical teams in the Big 12? I think that's going to be the biggest question. But you're right. It's interesting. And I think defense is the big equalizer and can keep us in games, but we'll see how that goes as we kind of move along into conference season. Cause if we start at K-State and we have Kansas looming, and it's murderer's row when it comes to Big 12. I mean, this is the SEC of basketball, period.
Absolutely.
So, all right. That's it. That's all we have for hoops this week. Hopefully we'll have Ben back next week. But Alan, I'm going to leave you on the screen for your oxymoronic stat of the week.
Okay. So I was excited to do this one. So it's something
I saw that big smirk as soon as you said that. Okay. Let's go.
No, just because we've beat this subject to death here, but I really kind of want to dive into it. And it was just final UCF football stat of the week, which is our rushing defense. And I went back and looked at every single running back of our opponent and what they did to us this season statistically. And in 6 out of the 9 conference games, the opposing running back had his season high against us. So 6 out of 9 literally had their best game of the season against us. And those 6 also happened to top 100 yards, and 3 of them topped over 150 yards. So it wasn't like they were just getting their season high with 70, 80 yards. Most of them were getting well over 100 yards against us. So there's only 3 times all season where a player didn't get their season high against us. One was against Cincinnati, one was against Oklahoma State and Houston, which we know we really stopped Ollie Gordon for Oklahoma State. Houston's running back only ran for 33 yards. And then Cincinnati had his 3rd most yards against us and still put up 129. So found that very interesting that 6 out of the 9 players, and granted, a lot of these are good running backs like Devin Neal and Texas Tech has a great running back, West Virginia, CJ Donaldson, but 6 out of the 9 had a season high against us. And actually 3 of them were career highs, all against UCF this year. So that just puts into perspective how bad our run defense was this year. And that's my stat of the week.
Wow. Thanks for bringing us up there, Alan. No wonder he was all smiles. He was like, I get to take Trey's thunder. It's not Trey yells at clouds. It's Alan roast the defense week.
Yeah. I mean, because you could have a bad defense, but it's pretty crazy to think about. Most of these guys had their season high against us, especially. I don't know what's better, if they were scrubs having their season high, or if they're like top backs in the league having their season high against us. I don't know what's worse, but I don't know. It's all bad. I guess I did kind of bring the mood down, but it had to be said. That's all to say about UCF's run defense until August of next year.
Well, it's not all I'll say about it. I'll say that right now. With that being said, one thing that I did to our rapper argument too, Juice WRLD as well. So like him, and he posthumously, they released some more of his music here within the past week. So go check that out. It's good stuff. And if you listen to the words, it reminds me a little bit of Eminem and how real it is in what he's talking about. So not only is it good music, good sound, it's not always good themes, right? But it's real music. So check that out too. All right, I had to throw that in there. That's my oxymoronic rap fact of the week. So Josh obviously isn't here. We won't have our sometimes funny fact of the week, other than the fact that Josh did send us a picture from Gwinnett County, Georgia, which is where Trey is from. I visit there quite a bit because we have business in Atlanta. And I'm actually going to go visit some of the haunts of Trey's food suggestions there for barbecue and a few other things. So I'm excited about that.
The greatest county of football in the entire country. And
oh boy! I think I have to mute Trey now because there's some other counties that I could name that
I think the NFL came out with like a per capita stat, like for the county, for how big our county is. We put the most people in the NFL. I think
you could have been part of that stat. You could have been part of it.
That wasn't good enough. Which speaks to how good the county is.
NGE. Trey just called himself NGE, folks.
NGE.
Not good enough. All right. So since we don't have Josh this week, let's go ahead and Alan, I'll let you give us a quick hoops report on the women's side of the ball. And since that's really the only other UCF sports we have going on right now.
Yeah. Obviously we know last week they suffered their first loss against FAU, but they were able to rebound and get a 67-41 win over Mercer. And now they head into conference play, and it starts off with Oklahoma. So big first game for the ladies basketball team, and we'll see if they can, build on this 9-1 start that they have to the season, and rack up some conference wins and hopefully get ranked.
Awesome. Yeah, they've played pretty well. They've only had a couple of stumbles where it's just like, okay, what's going on right now? But overall, it seems like a pretty solid team, and I'm excited even more so as it comes to the, as they get into next year, because they've got some pretty exciting prospects that are coming in as well for next year. So I'm excited, for this program. And like I said, go watch them. They're worth the watch. Those that are season ticket holders, I believe they still allow you in free for the women's games as part of your season tickets package for the men's program. And it's well worth your watch. So that being said, Alan, I'm going to leave you on the screen again. And this is becoming the Alan Levin show to update us on the Big 12 bowl recap and our new conference brethren and how they're doing.
So I hate to be a Deb Downer again, but UCF, as of now, is the only team in the Big 12 to lose their bowl game so far. So the conference overall has done good. It sits at 3-1. As we know, we talked about those first few games where Texas Tech beat California. Then last night, Kansas beat UNLV 49-36. Then earlier today,
that's not even Power 5, bro.
No, it's not, but the other ones are. So Texas.
Hey, I can say that now.
You can. You absolutely
Actually, can. I shouldn't. I should say that's not even Power 4, bro. because it's Power 4 now. We got to get that in our lexicon.
That would be Power 3 the way FSU's talking about. They're
trying to leave. Oh my gosh, FSU throwing a tantrum. We didn't even talk about that.
That's true.
That's about the hissy fit of the century right there. I mean, they're suing the ACC and telling them that you guys are so bad that you accepted a team that's not taking any money. They even threw Stanford under the bus. So they threw SMU under the bus in the lawsuit. So basically said, you guys are so bad, you don't have any television value. You're self-funding. And then you're so bad that you added Stanford, who's terrible. And it's like, wow. Like FSU just like.
They're trying to get out there, man.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for the lawsuit, they're basically saying, hey, look, you watered down the conference. We didn't have a say in it. And actually, the numbers for the ACC contract have come out, too, if you've seen those. They're in the 20s, right? And Notre Dame adds about $3 to $4 million on an escalating basis for their appreciation. So they're not going to match what the Big 12 gets until 2027, I think, or something like that, and not even close. So it's really, really interesting. They threw a hissy fit. They've talked about, basically being goaded into the GR. They threw the ACC's conference commissioner under the bus, saying that he signed with Raycom because his son worked there as a VP. There's all kinds of mess going on. That's going to be the summer. That's going to be the talk of the summer for sure. And the SEC came out and said, hey, we don't want y'all. So they're doing all this, and they may not even have a home. So it'll be, and Florida would be stupid to invite them into the conference. So it'll be really interesting. And if they ended up in the Big Ten, because they're borderline AAU status right now, I could see them getting pushed over. They're going to be playing a lot of cold weather games, and those FSU fans are not going to be happy campers.
Yeah.
All right, Alan. Sorry about that. Keep it going.
Okay. So like I said, then Texas Tech beat California. Earlier today, West Virginia beat North Carolina. So there's a Power 4 win there. And then
that's
Oklahoma
actually
State,
a good win because North Carolina was pretty good this year.
Yeah, they were 8-4 before that game. So West Virginia actually finished out 9-4, and they beat UNC by 20. So it was a pretty big win. And then right now, as we speak, Oklahoma State is beating Texas A&M, SEC Texas A&M 31-13. So it looks like the Big 12 is going to move to 4-1 in bowls, with UCF being the only loss.
I love that chuckle at the end.
Hey, wow. At least we're the only one of the newcomers to make a bowl. There's some positivity.
I know. It's frustrating. I mean, this was a winnable bowl. It's a winnable bowl. Like this, there's just no excuse for it, honestly. And it was a failure all the way around. But I still just with what was said by the coaching staff and interviews and things before the bowl game and after, I just had this vibe that they just did not prep. And I think that's exactly what we saw happen. So if anybody has ever wondered how short the show could be without Josh on the show, you now know how short this show can be without him. We're now at 1:43 and we're ready to wrap up. So, Josh and any listener who says, hey, this show is way too long, you can thank Josh. And we've discovered that now. We hope to have Noah back this week. I'm going to actually have to edit this, unfortunately. Although I think I might make him do it anyway. I don't know. I haven't decided yet since we are getting it out at our normal time. But just all in all, the season sucked. It came to an end in a way that sucked. Not the season sucked, but it came to an end in a way that sucked. But we've completed our first Power 4. What are you laughing at, Trey? Oh my gosh. He's hitting the B button over there. This is why you got to watch the YouTube show, right? Because of this. But anyway, we ended our first Power 4 season, so that's in the history books. UCF will be in the Power 4 again next year. We don't have to worry about being our absolute best and being perfect to try to make sure we get the last ship. We're in the Big 12, and as the ACC is proving with FSU, we're in a good position and in the best lifeboat that we could have been in when it came to moving up. We could be in the ACC now with that whole mess and everything that's going on there. So for UCF fans, breathe a sigh of relief. Our recruiting class is great. We're looking forward to that. We'll see what comes in the transfer portal. Keep your fingers crossed for KJ Jefferson. I hope you had a great holiday season. Remember to like, subscribe, and give us feedback. Go Knights and
charge on.
All right. I guess this is the part where I start talking because Josh isn't here to say random stuff at the end of the show. And, it was a good show, guys.